Sebastian Gorka, Deputy Assistant to President Trump. Good morning, Dr. G. Thanks for returning to the show.
My pleasure. Good morning, Alex.
It's great to hear from you. So let's start with the biggest news, which is the firing of James Comey, and he's presumably you guys are going to try to come up with a replacement in short order. How's the process going? Any hints that you can give us as to what's happening behind the scenes?
I wish I could, Alex. I wish I could, but I'm not going to steal the president's thunder or the attorney general's, I'm afraid.
So nothing. I can't get anything out of you. All right. I guess that's fair. I guess that's to be expected. So let's turn to the future, which is this week. The president's going to be making his first international trip. Can you lay out for us what we're expecting to see and hear from the president? I mean, it looks like the docket is quite packed. It's going to be Saudi Arabia, Israel, the Vatican, the G7. There's going to be a lot of North Korea talk. There'll probably be a fair bit of Russia talk. It seems like it's just going to be a whirlwind. What do we have in store?
Well, it's going to build upon the incredibly successful international trips already by the vice president and by Secretary Mattis to Europe and to Asia. And the big take-home, there will be, of course, specifics with regards to each of the places the president is visiting. But the big take-home is going to be a very, very simple one. We are back as a nation. American leadership is back. And as the vice president stated from the deck of the USS Ronald Reagan, the aircraft carrier, just 3 weeks ago, the era of strategic patience is gone. It's over. There will be no more leading from behind, which by itself is an oxymoron. And this is not an interventionist American policy. The White House is not a neocon rebirth, if you will, but it is a White House that will fill the vacuum created by eight years of feckless Obama lack of leadership. So the message will be clear, whether it's in the Middle East or whether it's in Europe, that American leadership is back. And very simply put, it's not an accident that two of our cabinet members come from the same Marine Corps division, and that Marine Corps division has a very simple motto: no better friend, no worse enemy. And that's really the message we're putting out there.
Well, one thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a three-way summit, apparently, with Abbas, Palestinian Authority leader, and Benjamin Netanyahu. And one thing that is interesting, and the President Trump himself as well. And one thing that struck me as interesting here is that the Palestinians want to destroy Israel, and it's a tough thing to have a summit where you're hopefully going to bring peace and compromise when one side has at the top of its agenda destroying the one Jewish state on the planet. And so how does the president, who is an expert negotiator, hope to reconcile this situation?
Well, look, he's been very, very clear. He's not giving away the end result in advance. He said, we will get to a deal, but only if everybody concerned is satisfied. So we're not going to steal our own thunder. We've got Jason Greenblatt. We've got Jared, the president's son-in-law, working as point people on these issues. But yeah, there are some serious issues. But the question is, do we wish to see some kind of resolution? It's clear Israel does. It does want to see a resolution. And the question is, do all the parties, does the Palestinian Authority wish, after decades and decades of instability, of conflict, of bloodshed, do they finally come to the table in good faith? The hope is that they do. And if they do, then this president, of all presidents, will be able to bring that deal. But of course, he's been very clear, Alex. He's not imposing some American vision of a deal onto the parties. It has to be the parties concerned, with us as mediator, with us assisting, but it's not going to be something we force upon the parties. We don't do that.
All right, let's change our focus to North Korea. They had another missile test hit 60 miles from Russia. The reports are that they could carry a nuclear warhead, that they're accelerating plans to send a missile to the United States. Is this all just tough talk from Little Kim, or is this something much more serious, Dr. G?
Well, it's disturbing the fact that they're not supposed to be doing any kind of ballistic ICBM testing, yet they are proceeding to do so. That's why there has been an emergency session called of the Security Council at the UN. It's a problem. It's a problem. We have to wait. We have to verify. At the moment, we can only comment on the press reports out there with regards to the altitude and the trajectory of this rocket. If it is a new capability, then that is especially disturbing, and we're going to have to take the requisite measures.
So one thing that our own John Hayward pointed out, he thinks the reason why there's so much focus on North Korea this time around is placid, if not overt, support from the Chinese government. Do you take that as a wise statement by John Hayward, or do you think he's misguided?
John's an old colleague. I respect John. I think I'd temper any kind of comment of that nature by looking more specifically at what Beijing did after Mar-a-Lago summit. And I think the actions taken by Xi Jinping and his administration were very, very positive. Of course, it's difficult to know what's going on behind closed doors. But I think after the cruise missile attack, after the Moab bombing in Afghanistan, I think numerous nations have drawn the conclusion that this isn't the Obama White House, and that we have our own red lines, and that we wish other nations that have client states to reconsider their own internal red lines. Just how far will you go to support a regime that either uses weapons of mass destruction against their own citizens, or is a Stalinist dictatorship that is in flagrant denial of all the weapons treaties, all the development treaties that apply to them? This is the moment. This is the moment when these nations have to reassess how their limits to just how far their support of pariah states will go. And I think we've seen some positive signs already.
So, keeping in the Far East, the President Xi Jinping he criticized protectionism on a summit today. The Silk Road Plan is what he's been revealing, which is he was addressing 30 leaders trying to revive ancient land and sea trade routes in Asia and Europe and Africa, Dr. G. And he said that globalization is encountering some headwinds, but he said that he was seeking greater openness and cooperation, avoiding fragmentation. This seems to be a little bit of a call out to President Trump's Make America First agenda. Your thoughts?
I think it's a little bit ironic that we're hearing these kinds of words coming out of that location. Look, the story hasn't changed. We have a president who was an incredibly successful businessman. So, in principle, we have no problem with international trade. International trade is good, but the bottom line remains the same. It's got to be fair. It's got to be fair. If there are rules of the game, if there are agreements that have been brought by all the parties, then it is very important that everybody abides by them. Signing a deal, an international agreement on trade where only one party actually stays by the regulations and we stay by them and the other massive participants do not, that's not something that we're going to abide.
That's Dr. Sebastian Gorka. He's a deputy assistant to President Trump in the White House. And a couple other things, Dr. G, quickly, just some updates on some of the major campaign proposals from President Trump. Wanted to get your thoughts. First of all, so pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord and trying to roll back America's involvement in some of these climate change global governance treaties and organizations. How is this coming along?
It's connected very closely to what you can expect from the international visits by the president. There's a philosophy that guides everything that the White House does, whether it's on climate agreements, whether it's on international trade, or whether it's on international security. We're not going to look at the world as we would like it to be. We're not going to stare through tinted spectacles, and a lot of the environmental agreements were done in that way. We're going to look at the world as it is. And if a nation says one thing with regards to climate measures or pollution measures and does absolutely the opposite, again, we're not going to let that lie. So, we bring, the president especially brings a very high degree of pragmatism to international relations, and that applies to environmental issues as it does to peace in the Middle East.
And so the last issue today I wanted to bring up, which will probably be the hottest topic as the day progresses, is the ransomware attack that's going on, the global cyber attack. It's spreading as people return to work today. A lot of the code was deployed on Friday, so a lot of the results of the hacks was not, we hadn't felt the full effect of it. And some people are describing this as a wake-up call for governments. This is Microsoft over risks of hoarding digital weapons. This is digital weaponry. Is this something that is getting a lot of talk in the White House over the weekend and this morning, Dr. G? What's going on with this?
Absolutely. And I'd like to point all your listeners to the fact that we actually just released last week, so that the timing was incredibly important. We just released the president's executive order on cybersecurity. So the Deputy National Security Assistant, Tom Bossett, and his superlative cyber team, you can read the executive order. We understand as an administration that this is the new domain. We've had land, air, sea, we've had space. Now we have the cyber domain, and it is time to take it seriously. What happened this weekend is not the anomaly. This is the new reality, and we have to understand that our enemies, nation-state actors and non-nation-state actors, will be exploiting this cyber domain mercilessly, and we are prepared to take action against it.
Thanks, Dr. Gorka. That's Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Deputy Assistant to President Trump. Always a pleasure to catch up with him. We'll speak to you soon, sir.